You are listening to the Run the Rack Outdoors podcast, where we take an all-in, leave no doubt approach to all things adventure hunting. From the big woods to the high country. How about that? Let's learn together as we discuss with our expert guests on what it takes to be successful in the backcountry. I'm your host, Weston Homa. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Run the Rack Outdoors podcast. Today I got on Jaden Bales. Jayden hosts the Hunt West podcast. He's the owner and operator of Hunt West Planning Company. He is also a contributor for Eastman's Magazine. He does the MRS section. And it's funny, I didn't know that, and we started talking about that. And then he mentioned that he's actually the contributor to that. So that was funny. But wanted to get Jayden on here. He's a great dude. And basically just walk through at a high level if somebody had really no knowledge of how to hunt out west and how to plan a hunt, where to begin, get a tag, what gear to buy, where to go, all these things. We basically just take a deep dive on how to do that if you're somebody just starting from scratch. So I think this is a great listen, whether you're a rookie in this game or maybe you've been doing it for a little bit and you can find like little nuggets that you can piece together that you might have been missing. So great podcast here with Jayden. Hope you guys like it. He's a great dude. He knows his stuff too. You can tell how passionate he is about all this Western hunting, planning, research. So definitely go check out his platform too. That's Hunt West. He has a podcast, he has an Instagram page, and go check out his stuff too. And if you're interested in his services for planning a Western hunt, he said you can just shoot him a DM on Instagram, and that works well. So that's the episode this week. Other things going on. So as of today, I'm about 5 weeks out from Eastern State's 100-mile ultramarathon. So this will be my first 100-miler, 20,000 feet of gain. I'm so excited. I'm really getting into the thick of my training. So I'm going to head out today. I'm recording this on Sunday for about another 10 or 11 miles on the trails, trying to get a lot of climbing in. So I think I'll be around 80 miles for the week. So definitely feeling it. But I'm also a little surprised how my body's holding up. I think just having the nutrition dialed, staying on top of mobility work, stretching, strength training. I've been doing a lot of the mountain tough workouts. And I think those have helped me a ton, especially the lower body kind of stuff. This way, I can be absolutely ready to rock and roll come September. But then also, it's only going to help me for these big ultra marathons as well. So, been really liking Mountain Tough too. I'm going to knock out this race on August 9th and then start getting absolutely 100% ready, squared away for September. So, at the end of August, I'm leaving for Colorado. I have a high country Archie mule deer tag. Be out there for like the first half of the month, and the second half of the month going to Idaho to chase elk. So pretty much all my work, PTO, is going to September, and I can't wait. Also, the time of this recording, I should have dropped a YouTube video. It's what I call episode 1 of 100-mile ultra training prep. So I just like putting these videos together, just kind of walking through all my training in my day-to-day. I mean, I have a regular job. Nothing special, and I still believe I can do this 100-miler and do it competitively. So I just like to show my training for that. If you're ever curious about what it takes to train for a big ultra and build endurance. So I share a lot of the things that have worked for me, and hope you guys like it. So that's that. I think that's all I have this week. So let's have another great week, everybody. Let's leave no doubt. Let's work as hard as we can, and let's run the rack. All right, everybody. Enjoy this one with Jayden. See ya. Go Hunt has a single purpose: make it easier for hunters to get into the field. Hunting tags are only getting harder to obtain, and Go Hunt is a research platform helping navigate the ins and outs of drawing tags and researching hunts across the West. I've had a Go Hunt membership for years now, and I'm a big fan of the articles written on there by Brady and Trail. The content is next level stuff that has helped me a ton. From animal behavior to archery, they are sharing all the nuggets. I also love the hunt films on YouTube. They are extremely inspirational, and they'll make you want to get out in the mountains ASAP. Check out the Go Hunt Gear Shop, where they have everything you need for this coming hunting season. Use the code RACK, that's RACK, for 10% off eligible items in the shop. And you can use the code RACK for $50 in-shop credit when you join as an insider. So sign up for a membership and immediately get $50 back toward hunting gear. Check it out. You won't regret it. Jayden, how's it going, man?
Dude, it's going good. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Before we dive right into it, do you want to talk a little bit about your platform, Hunt West, what you're tied up in, and like a little bit of background about you?
Yeah, sure, dude.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, I grew up in Northeast Oregon. Just grew up in the mountains all the time with parents, grandparents, and parents on both sides who like took me hunting and fishing all the time, and it was awesome. Then I did the thing where you go off to college, follow a gal to a new state. That state happened to be Wyoming, and I got really into hunting. Basically, I was getting really into it right in college, but then as soon as that was over, I could put a ton of time into it, and dude, it sank its teeth in me. So I spend a lot of time outdoors, and then I started having people kind of hit me up to be like, hey, what do you think about this area? Like, how would you hunt this? And like, I don't know if it was just casual, that they were just wanting another person's perspective or what, but I started building hunting plans for people in like 2020. And then I started charging for it in 2022. And last year I took it as my full-time business with Hunt West, and I call it Hunt West Planning Company, just to kind of differentiate the planning and business side of it from the podcast. And then the podcast, is kind of taken off as its own being. So we basically just try to help people, with planning hunts, setting expectations, getting prepared for fall adventures. And it's been really fun. Back in the day, one of my kind of main starts into the hunting industry was working with Cody Rich at the Rich Outdoors. And I used to run a Muley Monday podcast with him for 2 years or so. And that was a blast. So I just love getting people on who know way more than I do about all of these different topics and picking their brain. I hunt a lot, and I got a lot of heads, but I always feel like you can be learning something, and that's really fun. And it's the fun part about doing podcasts. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, forever a student of the game, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. You'll never master the craft, but if you treat it as a craft, then you can get better every day. It's like a woodworker is never finished, learning all of the different aspects of his craft. And I think that hunting is the same.
That's it, dude. I love that. That's funny too, because like I feel like when I started hunting out west, so I started about, what was it, 2020, 2021 is when I started going out west. I grew up hunting back here in Pennsylvania and stuff, obviously, but dude, that's when I found out what a podcast was. Like, it was hunting podcast, and that's when I really started becoming more of a student within this craft, and picking up books about mule deer, hunting mule deer and like elk behavior. And like, I hadn't read a book, like I think I read one book through high school just to like spite my English teacher who was like giving me a hard time. But I found though that kind of mindset of forever student and everything. And now I'm like, I always got a book I'm grabbing, whether it's hunting related or whatever, and cranking out podcasts for things I'm interested in. And like, that's what's cool. And it's really fun having conversations like this too on your own too, because it's like, selfishly, I'm learning too. And then obviously we're putting out there, and it's all the better.
Yeah, you bet, dude. And it's funny, like I get a lot of guys from back east say, well, like something to the effect of, well, I didn't grow up doing this, so I'm not very good at it, or I don't know, And it's funny, like, because I grew up in a family that was doing it all the time. And what I've found is like locals to the Western hunting game can be stuck in their ways because they just think that, something that worked in 1987 is going to continue working in 2025. And it's just is really not the case in most scenarios. And I grew up, I love my family, and I loved the hunting adventures we used to have. And my dad has adapted quite a bit, but it was kind of like the old school family camp, like doing that thing was really good. But there's a lot of years we didn't get anything, right? And so I just, as I'm thinking about your experience, like learning through podcasts, I did the same thing. and had a bunch of really awesome mentors that like brought me into kind of an adaptable strategy, something that's like a little different than what we used to do in the olden days. And now it's kind of cool because it's coming full circle, and some of those old school strategies and tactics are working, and they're applicable today. So it's really fun to find out all the tools in the toolbox based on the different people you talk to, for sure.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And I really like the idea of what you got going on with your planning and stuff, because what I found like over the years is like if people want to go with an outfitter and a guide and like do all that, like that's great. But gosh, what a world of difference a hunt can be going out west to a place you've never been before versus like if you have some little information on it, or you can go back to the same unit the second year, you feel
Yeah.
like a completely different hunter just with like some sort of base information, whether you can, like I said, do that, or have somebody like you help out plan, or even if you got at some point boots on the ground or something like that. Like that's
Hmm.
so next level. Because when you
Yeah.
get out there back east, like those mountains are way bigger and steeper, and you got glassing pins like all over on X, and then you're just like, oh, yeah, I don't know about getting up there.
Yeah, for sure. And I also should say, like, I do guide people in the fall too. And it's really like for people who have the budget to do it, it is such it'll definitely shorten the learning curve, but like it's expensive, right? There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it also depends on the guide and the type of hunt you do too. I'm really excited. I've got a family from Indiana coming out that contacted me about elk hunting, and they all drew cow tags. And part of the hunt that I'm really excited about is they want to just like learn how to do the Western style of hunting. They want to learn how to glass, how to stalk in on something, how to grab a good vantage point, like those kinds of things. And as a guide, like I'm also really interested in teaching that. But like you said, it's either that or you're out there, burning boot leather on your own and trying to figure it out. And it just takes years. It really
Hmm.
does, man. There's nothing you can really replicate for repetition.
Yeah, I mean, I ate a couple years of tags before I punched anything out there. It definitely. I mean, it's still fun. Like I don't regret any of it, and I love doing it that way. But obviously, you can learn a lot doing the other ways too. And that does sound like a fun hunt. Like going with people like that are just like, dude, I got this cow tag, but I just want to learn like how to quarter an animal. I want to
Yeah.
learn how to glass. I want to learn like just about the behaviors of these animals. Like that sounds way more fun than the guy that hits you up and is like, listen, man, if you don't put me on a 6x6 in like 5 days, like I'm not tipping you, or like something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had both versions of clients. They can be very frustrating. But, just for anybody coming out east from back east, it's like, dude, even for someone who lives out here, I was born and raised elk hunting and deer hunting. Dude, it took me 7 years to kill a bull with my bow. And granted, that was probably like a lack of talent, but also like it's just hard, man.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard.
and I think that that's something that people undervalue or over expect, is to come out and just be covered up in animals, because that's what you see in the highlight reels on the internet or on TV. So yeah, it's important. Like, and like you said, you've put in your time, like eating tag soup, and that's why I think there's some different ways to get into the game today than maybe even 5 to 10 years ago that people should be thinking about. We can probably dive into that a little later, but yeah, just getting good repetition before you are going to the Super Bowl is like really important.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to kind of walk through of a common like scenario that
Yeah.
I've gotten talking to whitetail hunters from back east here, and I'm sure you've gotten all the time. And
Hmm.
it is like the most like loaded question, and it's funny to even ask. But I think it'd be fun to like have this as the essence of the conversation, and then we're just gonna break it down, break it down, break it down. So somebody hits you up and is like, or you're talking to somebody randomly, Jayden, and they're just like, yeah, I'm from back east or down south or the Midwest, and I hunt my whitetails, and that's all cool, but man, I would like to kill an elk, but I don't even know where to start. I don't
Yeah.
know, like, how do you, like, the point, like, this is what I hear, like, the points thing, I don't know, like, I don't want to deal with it. And it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
if you want to do it, you gotta start. So if
Yep.
somebody asks very broadly, how do I go about hunting in the West? Where can we start?
So the number one thing that I think people should do is just pick a state that you're like interested in. If you're living in Wisconsin, I love Montana as a state for you to start with. If you're in Nebraska, Wyoming, or Colorado makes sense, right? Like pick one of these first states that will be easier to drive to. You can cut out some time. If you're living in California, Idaho is a great state, like, or Utah. Starting with one state is like how you start eating the elephant, like one bite at a time, because as most folks know, like there is a pretty complicated application process to get the tags that everyone is seeing on TV, etc. But I'm not sure when you're releasing this, but as of early July, there are, let's see, 6 states that you could buy over-the-counter elk tags in still across the West. And a lot of those over-the-counter tags may be something like it's reissued and you have to sit on the queue and grab one. Maybe they are a true over-the-counter tag, like the tag sales coming up in Utah or Oregon, or they're a cow tag. And it's like, oh, sweet, I didn't have to have any points. I'm not burning any points. They're usually cheaper in some states. Like you can go in this fall still, and we're in the summer, in the middle of summer. And so I think a lot of people think that it's just something they can't attain because they haven't started 10 years ago. But the fact is, if you choose one state and start learning the ways that they issue tags and reissue tags and have over-the-counter options, it becomes really attainable. You're like, oh crap, like actually I could go now. And then other things start cropping up. Usually those guys who say that have put off doing the research, and therefore they end up coming up with other excuses why they can't go out this fall. But you could definitely go next fall, and that would be easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just like how, in today's world, everybody talks about how impossible it is to get tags, but literally you just said right there, it's the summer, it's July right now, and there's technically 6 tags over the counter where you could still hunt an elk this fall.
Yeah.
For a non-resident.
And just to clarify, like that's a mix of like reissued tags, Landowner tags, and over the counter tags.
Right. And I know that. But
yeah,
isn't that like fun to think about? Like there's still
it's awesome. And it's someone like if someone went into the tag application game next spring and struck out because they were going into the Idaho new system, or they're throwing down in New Mexico and didn't draw. It's like, dude, everyone just like goes, oh, I didn't draw, like I'm out. And it's like, no. Like there's a lot of other options on the table that again, it just takes some effort, some research on one unit or one state, and you can start turning up these things, and you're like, oh man, I can go out west every year still. And in a lot of cases, with our example of elk, it's like actually elk opportunity is increasing in a lot of places, especially for cows, and it's a really good way to get people started, especially as you wait for a bull tag. But again, it was kind of that example. I was like, dude, I don't want the first time that I play in the Super Bowl to be my first football game. Like you would really want to, if you're building points and doing the application game to get a bull tag, you would want to know how to hunt elk by the time you got there. And that's where I think that cow tag is really underutilized and like a good opportunity for people to be looking at.
For sure. And they eat just as good,
or better. Yeah.
So yeah. Piggybacking off that, because I know this conversation might flow more easy if I pick a species at this point. So let's just pretend like the guy in our story here is saying, okay, I hear you. Elk. I want to hunt an elk because I'm from New York and we don't have elk here. So just mentioned over the counter. So, and everybody's heard of points. So trying to think of the easiest way to explain the difference between an over the counter tag and a draw tag that requires points. We can get into the weeds as much as we want, but at a high level, if you're kind of just explaining this to somebody, what would you say?
So you have an over-the-counter tag, which is just like over-the-counter medication. You just walk up to the store and you purchase the tag and you go hunt. Like that's largely how most whitetail hunting is distributed, that most folks can relate to, right? Then your draw tags with points are oftentimes a scenario where every year that you are waiting to draw a tag, you have improved chances to be either at the front of the line and get one, or to just improve your drawing odds once you're in the pool with everybody else. So at this point in the game, sometimes you have to apply in a certain time frame in the spring to get your point. But then there's other states like Wyoming and Montana where you can just purchase your points in this like other time frame of the year. So
Wyoming just went on sale today, right?
yeah, I think it was today, and then or Montana, but both of them start like now in the
for
summer
their points. Yep.
and go through the fall for the most part. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like the points game. The best way to think of it is it improves your chances the more times that you purchase points, and that's how you get a long ways down the road for these really high demand tags, right? But gosh, every state that I could think of that has robust elk populations and a lot of opportunity, dude, it just takes a couple, like 2-3 points, and you're in the game.
Yeah, 2-3 points, meaning 2-3 years, kind of in the line.
Yep,
And
exactly.
if you were to tell this guy who wants to come out and hunt elk, would you recommend people getting points right off the bat, or would you say, hey, let's just get this over the counter tag now and then see how you do?
Usually it's a both, right? Like if you've got an over the counter tag, it doesn't take points. So whether it's Colorado second or third season rifle elk tag, or it's Montana B tag, which is their cow tags, or it's Wyoming's like leftover cow tags, like those don't take your points. So you can go do that and still get, a year of points. So it's like it's a yes. It's like do both of those things in most of these cases.
I like that attitude too, because it's like,
Yeah.
you're going to do it. Yeah, let's do it. So, okay, we'll keep diving down the rabbit hole. Our guy here says, all right, I hear you. I see these over-the-counter tags in Colorado. I want to do that. I want to buy an over-the-counter elk tag in Colorado. When can I go? Where can I buy it? And what can I do now in the summer to best get me ready?
Okay, so I'm going to make a slight delineation between like a returned tag that you can pick up over the counter.
Perfect.
And your over the counter tags that are just unlimited.
Okay,
so
this is great. Yeah.
Whether you are looking at Montana, Idaho, even Nevada, and Colorado, there's a whole system where people who, let's just say you drew a different hunt somewhere else, or you found out your wife's having a baby and you got to turn your tag back in. You can't go on the hunt. There's a whole system that reissues those licenses to other hunters. And that goes throughout basically like August through the fall. Those tags, for example, are oftentimes, they can be really high demand stuff that like just someone.
I didn't know Nevada had this. This is
Yeah.
Okay. That was interesting. Okay, go ahead.
They can be really high demand stuff that just gets turned back in and needs to go to somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those tags in particular, they do take a little bit more effort on your part to know what kind of a hunt you want. That would be like your archery hunters in particular should be looking at something like that, especially in Colorado now that there's no non-resident over-the-counter hunts. And those are going to be like, okay, I want to be an archery hunter. Like maybe that's the thing you focus on. If you're a rifle hunter and you're looking at either Utah's over-the-counter, Colorado's over-the-counter, or some of these cow tag states, then it's basically like, okay, I just want to find something with decent public land. So as you kind of have, chosen one state that we were talking about earlier to choose from, then you figure out what parts of the state are going to fit the kind of style of hunt you want. And then you can look at, what kind of opportunities are there either over the counter or through those reissues. So it's like, you're kind of narrowing the funnel down as far, each time you go into these steps. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, side tangent.
Yeah.
So Colorado elk as a non-resident, you can hunt in, we'll just call it the rifle season. We can get into the different rifle seasons, but you can hunt elk with a rifle over the counter, and you can no longer hunt elk archery in the traditional over the counter way.
Yes.
Like driving to Walmart the day before the season or during the season even, and buying a tag. Did they come out with now this year's results? Like, I was curious with all those units, did they basically take, like, were they just 0-point units? Were there units left over? Is it still pretty slim pickings as long as you get in the draw?
Yeah, they haven't published the leftover list yet, and I was just
Okay.
looking before we hopped on. But the vast majority of those tags were super easy to draw, and I'm
Yeah.
helping plan some hunts for guys who have those. And I'm really excited. I'm excited because, like, again, that just means all of these hunts that were once over the counter, so you didn't have to think about planning until you got in your truck and drove west. Now you just have to think about it in April, or really it's like early April, so last part of March. You have to think about putting in for those early. So your timeline might have shifted, and when you're thinking about this stuff, but as long as that's marked on your calendar, you can still go every year.
Yeah. The only thing, this is just my personal opinion. There's what I like about it and what I don't like about it. Like, what I don't like is what everybody, kind of says. Like, Colorado was my fallback. That was always something you can just grab after all these other states have their results posted. And also now, like, I wonder, like, what I wanted to look at too was, were these possible to get second choice where you didn't burn your points? Because say if I have like 8 elk points in Colorado and I've been holding out for this 12-point elk unit, I still would like to keep hunting elk, but I don't want to just throw my 8 points away. You know what I mean? Like, can I still get these traditional over-the-counter units? We're getting a little bit detailed, but this is kind of my own curiosity.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, man, and I like helping guys on those second choice hunts because they're similar in style. Like, this is a really important distinction that I think people should think about and make. Just because it's limited now doesn't make it some sort of high quality experience. It doesn't necessarily make it like there's nobody else out in the mountains. What Colorado has done is essentially issued the same amount of non-resident tags in the draw as we're participating in over the counter. Oregon did this exact same thing a couple years ago when they got rid of a large portion of their east side Rocky Mountain elk tags. It's just like the hunt hasn't changed, and you got to remember that. But yes, like, long story long, there's a lot of opportunity in that second choice.
Okay, cool. What I do like about it is this makes more sense from like a management perspective, because they're going to have a better idea of where people are hunting, because now getting those tags, you're going to have to pick your unit. You can't necessarily bounce around to other units, and they just have a better they know the number now of like how many tags are bought and things like that. And then the other thing I like about it too is, like, if you made this a little bit harder than just driving to Walmart and buying a tag, to me, maybe that keeps out some of the riffraff. Maybe it keeps out the guys that are just kind of like, I mean, I would love to get a tag that easily too, but if guys don't want to just like take the extra few minutes to learn, like, okay, how do I submit an application? Maybe they aren't like, I'm totally just judging or whatever, but like, if you can't figure that out, maybe like there's a lot of other things you need to be figuring out to actually do this hunt successfully anyway. So it's like, if you're not willing to put in the work in for that, I don't know what to tell you. So it's like, I'll figure it out. If people quit at that point, if that's too hard for them, then more for us. You know what I mean?
No, in person, like, on an individual basis, like, I so agree with you. Like if someone else is dropping out of hunting in Colorado because it made it harder, like, I'm all about it because it makes it easier for me to go.
Yeah.
However, and this is maybe contradictory to how some people think in the West, I want a lot of people out there who aren't good hunters, because that means less animals are getting taken. They're quitting early. They're not hiking as hard. They're not glassing as hard, and they're just not a threat, right? Like, I like it when there's dudes out there who don't know what the heck they're doing, because I just can hunt better than them. So it is something, like, I like it, and I hope that people, keep just enjoying a nice vacation out west, like, when they've got a tag in their pocket. So it is a catch-22. But no, I also agree with you. Like, on an individual person to person basis, I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, if you're not figuring this out, like that leaves more opportunity to snag tags too.
Yeah, no, that's funny. I that's why I kind of like the high country. Well, this year will technically be the first year I'm doing it. It's a long story, but the high country mule deer hunts, like in Colorado, at like 12,000 feet, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm in. I'll go. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody else can, try their luck from the road and everything, and it's like I'll be up there.
Yeah.
More for us, but anyway, we're okay. We
Well,
went
and,
on
and
a
on that point, like it kind of goes back to what we're talking about of like in this age of like a lot of information, in the last 5 to 10 years being delivered. A lot of those, at least people I've talked to hunted these places a long time. Usually when I'm hunting a place, it's for the first time, right? And
Mhm.
I'm terrible. I don't go back to stuff very often unless it's right next to my house. Um, but from people who have like talked about the changes over time, is they're seeing a lot more hardcore guys showing up in these hard to reach places, and it's kind of opened up. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with some of the old school tactics. It's really opening up some like low country. It's opening up some like places that are near roads that are not getting hunted well. And so as this, as the circle, continues to revolve, like for instance, I always do a high country hunt or two a year, but gosh, I'm spending a lot of time out in the low stuff where it's roadless or hard to get to that doesn't look like, the top of mountain too. It just is all place dependent and situation dependent, but it's kind of fun. Like as you hear people doing one thing, they go right, you go left, and sometimes that's where you'll find some interesting opportunities. Just like low country elk instead of high timber aspen alpine basin elk. Like those are interesting to me right now.
Yeah, true. Especially in Wyoming too, because I see like I don't know some guys on YouTube that are like putting down these like stud bulls, and they're desert elk.
Yeah.
So it's like that is another opportunity there that maybe some people aren't doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like every state is so different. Every unit is so different. So it's
Hmm.
like there's no like absolutes. I feel like, but yeah, definitely good insight there.
But that's also where, like, when you choose one state and you start digging in, you start looking under the covers of the couches and like how a state manages elk and like flip the thing over and realize that there's an opportunity here where it's just not traditional, not what you've seen in primos from the 90s. Like those are some of the coolest and most kind of underutilized hunts, especially just year to year basis. And I think that's like kind of encouraging if someone has the open mind to say, well, I don't have to have this perfect giant aspen valley with like, bulls bugling out of every ridge and draw,
Yeah.
and like I'm going to shoot a 6 point over a wallow. Like if you can step back from this idealistic romantic like elk hunt but still be like, I want to go have an adventure in some crazy places, like that's where there's really a lot of fun opportunity right now, I think.
Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
too. If you're open minded to that, that can definitely be something really really cool to look into. So like I'm always fascinated when I'm reading like in the Eastman's magazines, like in the MRS sections that I'm going through every state, and like they'll do all their data of like their harvest rates and what they call their blue chip units and things like that. And I like to just like I like to read those magazines and I'm looking through that and I'm looking at like the units that they call like their blue chip and stuff, and like I might see like these units they call out in Wyoming, and then like maybe I'm at work and I have my work laptop right there and I'm just taking a break. But like then I'll go to like Google Maps and like I'll drop the guy kind of in that area and I'm like, oh yeah, that's like this is like a desert elk unit and this is
Yeah.
like has a ton of opportunity here and there's a ton of elk being killed here. So it makes you wonder like, if that's an opportunity that you want to see or you want to check out, there's elk there. That's just like something a little bit too of like thinking outside the box a little bit.
Hmm. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, and you're so good about, you're a fit guy. You're so good about being in shape for coming out west. Like it's just part of who you are.
Thanks.
But people
Yeah.
who, yeah, but people who aren't at that stage, right? Like people who are realizing that they got to get off the couch and they've never hiked a, 3,000 foot climb in 3 miles. Like some of those low country hunts, even in a general unit in Montana, or there's some stuff in Colorado that I really like. There's obviously stuff in Wyoming that you're talking about. Um, those kinds of hunts are really good for people who maybe aren't as physically fit,
Mhm.
because you're using your glass and you're driving a lot, and it's like it's much more friendly to someone who maybe not be might not be elk fit, and
Yeah.
hasn't spent the years getting ready for it.
Yeah, and that's no, that's definitely a good tip there too. If that's something you want to do, and that's still a challenge, like it's
Oh
still
yeah.
like you're gonna come out and like that doesn't mean just because you're bouncing around a little bit and you're letting your glass do the walk, like the walking, can be an incredibly smart way to hunt. But there's an art to glassing and
Hmm.
being in the right places at the right time. And which makes it fun.
Yeah.
It's still a challenge, is my point.
Yeah, it's just a little unique.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm gonna go back to some of the. Did you know that I write the Eastman's MRS?
I knew you did something for Eastman's.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know that that's what you wrote. So that's
You
hilarious.
you called it out, and I was kind of like, wait, I don't think he knew, or maybe he did. So
I knew
yeah,
you did something with Eastman's, but I didn't.
yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah.
Dude, I
It's been.
like it, man. I do
Thank
like
you.
it. I have a lot of the a stack of magazines behind me, and I have a lot of like the back pages tabbed like that
Cool.
for units that I'm like, oh, okay, like I might hunt there in 2029. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of how you got to be though. Is like what I found. Like I got next few years like some plan A, B's, and C's, but
Hmm.
that's just me. That's after you're in the game for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like the we started off talking about like, okay, choose one state, figure it out, right? And then just like start there with what opportunities are available in the short term. The next level, like let's just say just that's 101. The 201 level of that is probably to start looking at a 5-year strategy.
Hmm.
Something where you're like, okay, these 3 states, I can do a rotation between deer, elk, and in some cases antelope. Um, in these 3 states, like I can come back and just hit one a year, and I'm doing that at this point in the game. Like things are always changing, but doing that at this point in the game is a really sustainable and long-term plan. Like you can do a 5-year rotation and keep going and hunting every year. To the 301 level where you're like, okay, I've got my bull tags, because we're sticking with elk, right? We've got our bull tags that we're on the rotation with that are opportunity
Hmm.
tags. And then you start trickling in states that you're like, well, now, I understand that, let's just say Wyoming is a more of a 10-year strategy for me, just because that's how it fits. That's when you start realizing, okay, well, I'm playing this
Hmm.
game for long term. And let's say I'm 30 years old. Yeah, I'm going to probably hunt Arizona once or twice, but I want to when I get to Arizona, dang it, I'm going to know how to hunt elk. That's kind of how I like to think about expanding that
Yeah.
strategy further down.
Yeah, huge. I think maybe the natural progression is like that
Mm-hmm.
first year, at least this was just for me. I mean, like, no, I didn't have it all figured out. Not that I do now, but I know a ton much more than I did when I started. I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
prolonged strategy. I just wanted to hunt an elk. So I went to Colorado and elk hunted and saw elk, had my opportunities, hunted hard. Heard my first elk bugle in the timber, like sub 50 yards, and I saw all his cows, but I didn't I didn't see the bull. I didn't get a shot on him. And then that's just when I decided that
Yeah.
this is going to be my whole
Yeah.
personality now. So then I came back, and then that's when I went, okay, I'm going to try to educate myself to graduate to the 201 level and start reading every article and every podcast I can listen to and blah blah blah, and then you go down the rabbit hole of building out a strategy. So that's kind of what it looked like for me. So don't feel like you can't go hunt elk this year like one time, and you don't
No,
have to have a
no, that's
5-year
exactly right.
strategy, obviously.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
vice versa. You don't
Yeah.
have to be 10 years into this game for you to go hunt either. It's just, yeah, there's always a yin and yang. But,
Right.
one thing in all this tag conversation that I never pointed out is there are landowner tags that guys can purchase as well. And I know it's not the majority of people who listen to podcasts, like it's not in their budget. But like I've run into guys over the years who are like, dude, I just want to go. And I live in Wyoming, where there's not landowner tags that guys can buy. But a state like Colorado or Nevada or New Mexico, there are landowner tags. So I feel like it would be an incomplete picture if you didn't mention the fact that like people who save up or just who have the budget to do it can go buy unit wide tags and go hunt every year as well. It's a possibility.
Yeah, we don't have to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I really don't even know. Like, say somebody is like, okay, no, I have the means. I wanna DIY it, but I have the means, and I want to buy a landowner tag. I know those prices can vary, but dude, I actually don't know. Where does one go to buy
It's
a
called
landowner tag?
So there's a lot
Like,
of
what does that even look like?
places like other folks like Hunt and Fool or Epic Outdoors. They'll have tags to buy. There's a website called Hunter's Domain that offers opportunity to buy tags. I was just looking on Hunter's Domain before our podcast, and for instance, you could get a cow tag for a really good unit, a unit in Colorado that takes 8 points to go hunt the first rifle in. You could get that cow tag for that same unit, be hunting the same herds of elk and the same bugle and bulls for $1,000, which might be steep for some people, but when you're considering all of the things that come into play when you're coming out west in the first place, like it really is it's a pretty good deal. And then you'll look at some places like, let's just say New Mexico 16D. That's like part of the Gila units. And you can spend up to 22,000 to go do that, right? Like, so think of there being opportunities kind of spread throughout that. And yeah, if you're in that boat, you're like, dude, I just don't want to screw with this system, but I want to go just buy a tag. And you've got the budget for it. Like that is a good way to go.
Dude, I think that's killer, especially if you have 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 20, I don't know, elk points. You're not quite there yet, but it's like, gosh, I will go out there and buy $1,000 cow tag and learn that unit. And maybe you come home with a cow, and then you're ready for the next year or the year after when you actually draw the tag. You got some things scouted out. I think that's a
I mean,
killer
honestly,
move.
I
would do
even
that.
have guys doing that. I have a lot of people doing that with like a general Wyoming elk tag, because it takes 5, 6, 7 years to draw some of these general tags in Wyoming. But the cow tags are $288,
crazy,
and they don't take points. They're in a completely random draw. A lot of them are easy to get, and like I love advising on a guy who's like, hey, I just want help learning this elk unit. I'm about to draw my general, and I want to go kill a cow this year while I'm learning it. It's such like it's just great. Like that person, to bring it full circle, man, that person is invested in the craft, and they're invested in like learning a place and getting to know it. And they just almost across the board have way more success than someone who just rolls in with a bull tag for the first time and hopes to get it done in 5 days.
Yeah, I that's what I was thinking. That I bet that guy's going to come back successful. Like, that's the thing. He'll probably get his cow, and then he's has a very much better chance than getting the bull too. So that's really cool. Because it is crazy. Even in the last, like, I remember when I started buying points and hunting the West. I mean, I took Corey Jacobson's Elk 101 and all that, and I remember talking to other guys that had hunted the West, and it was like, yeah, at one point, 1 year, maybe your second year, you should get your general bull tag. But now it's 5, 6, and then when I'm even talking to people now, and they're like, okay, where should I buy points? And it's like, well, Wyoming's 5 or 6, but you have to think, you start now at 0 in 5 or 6 years. What's that going to look like?
You're exactly right, man.
8 or 9.
And that's again, just goes back to what are each agency are the agencies doing in the next 5 to 10 years? It's helpful to have a little bit insider knowledge, right? Like I know in Wyoming, as an example, we've got growing elk herds. People want to see more elk killed. And if you're someone who's looked at the east side of the state, you'll realize like, okay, well, maybe there is going to be more opportunity out there. And as I'm building that strategy, right? Like as you're looking down the road, it's like, well, crap, I think I can get an east side bull tag. I'm going to go out in 3 years or 2 years, depending on which draw you go into. Like then you can really revise and start cow elk hunting, start talking to landowners and trying to knock on doors while you're out there cow elk hunting and build some relationships and start learning local intel while you're out there. That's a huge piece of the equation.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think it's all good stuff. I want to get back to real quick our scenario with our guy here. So we talked about elk. We talked about Colorado. We explained to the guy that you can try to pick one up in the leftover. that's an option. But the archery tags have now gone to a draw, which is still easy. You just kind of got to do your homework in April if you want those units. But it's July, August. They still want to go, and it's like, okay, well, I see these rifle seasons have over the counter tags. So Colorado, I want to get an elk tag. I want to go now. It's July. I don't, I'll figure it out when. What's the question here I'm trying to ask? When am I going, and what am I looking for as far as, I'm going to start looking at maps and anything like that. Like what's kind of the first things I'm looking at? Maybe not even like elk related, but if I'm looking at a map of a big piece of public land and I want to hunt, okay, like I do want to hunt. I want a mountain experience in Colorado, hunting them over the counter rifle. I'm looking at, I got my out of state Onyx Elite membership now, and I'm looking at Colorado. What are some things I should be looking for? What are some things I should be avoiding?
First of all, you have the choice in Colorado between the second rifle season and the third rifle season. The idea here is the second rifle season, the elk, might be more on national forests before they get pushed out by weather and hunting pressure down into the low country that is predominantly private land. The third rifle season is going to be later in November, and you're going to have more chance for weather, which gets elk up and feeding and moving and might be better for seeing them. But you basically have to think about how pressure has changed their habits and like the nasty holes that they're going to get into. The other really effective way to be thinking about Colorado is to break it down between like, okay, I can either go like as far back or like deep as I can to try to get into elk that have been unpressured on public land. Or, I can use hunting pressure to my advantage. And then lastly, you can use private land to your advantage. And by that, I mean, and I think this is a strategy that a lot of people may not be drawn to because you're riding the line and you're using Onyx to make sure that the elk are in fair game. But essentially, what will happen in a lot of places is elk and deer, but in this case, elk will feed on private, and they'll be out there feeding in the open, and everyone will be like, God dang it, like, this sucks. Like, all the elk are out there. In that second rifle season, in particular, you may still find that they're bedding on public and coming down into fields to feed. And so working backwards from that and seeing like, okay, this corner back behind this private, is going to take me 1-2 hours to hike into and get back into that backside. Guys are looking at these elk from the highway, but they're not realizing that they're spending time on public on the other side of it. So that's a really creative way to start unlocking some places to hunt. Then you have the other side of the equation where it's like, okay, the steep and deep type guy. When you're doing that, man, all I would be looking at is like, okay, where are horse guys able to get to? And, where are some holes that look like I'm going to have to pack this sucker back up the drainage, down the next one, and out 2 or 3 miles. Like it is usually some nasty stuff.
Dude, literally the spots where it's like, I don't know how we get one out of there. That's where you got to go.
Both of those, like largely like we were talking about, like need some fitness, right? And then the other option is to find a good glassing knob that, is like in a migration corridor. You might sit at that glassing knob, and this is for the guy who's not as fit. You might sit at that glassing knob for 3 days and not see any elk in the area you want to kill them in. But what you're waiting for is either a good weather, good storm that's going to push bulls out of the high country, or you're waiting for other hunters to push them back, by you down the drainage. And again, like that strategy can feel like not as attractive to most people, but it's like one of the tools in the toolbox, that you can use. If it was opening day and I knew that all these people were camped up on this ridge and they were going to start pushing elk, and it was roadless between me and them, and they're going to push those elk onto private, dude, I'd be sitting right on that canyon where those elk are going to funnel through, because I know all those side-by-sides and ATVs and RV trailers that they hauled up to the top are going to provide hunting pressure that pushes them down. So using those kinds of, elk behavior knowledge is going to help you create a game plan that makes sense for your physical abilities and what you're looking for.
Gotcha. I like it. Okay, so let's keep going. Guy says, all right, man, I listen to the Hunt West podcast. I listen to Run the Rack podcast. I want to be like one of these hardcore guys. We're hardcore here. I want to backpack in, and we'll say it's second season rifle Colorado elk. And he's going with, his brother-in-law and his buddy from work, and they got 7 days, and they're thinking they want to backpack in. Maybe they want to do, they haven't done this before. Maybe they want to do 3 days in, and then they'll come out for a day, maybe go pack in 3 days somewhere else. So staying flexible, but they want to be, they want to backpack hunt in the mountain. There's whole platforms on backcountry gear, so we don't have to get into all of that. But say the guy, they've done a little bit of research, but they see a ton of influencer marketing, and they feel like they need to spend $1 billion just to go hunt an elk. What would you say are 3 items where it's like, all right, dude, you don't need all the best shit, but here's 3 things where you might want to allocate your money and not skimp on? What would you say those 3 items are?
So we're just talking this late season rifle right now, right? Because it's going to shift just a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. This second season rifle elk Colorado. So end of October,
I would want
beginning of November.
a teepee tent with a stove. I don't know if let's call that one item for the sake of the argument. The more that you can stay comfortable while you are out there, the better hunter you're going to be. And on top of that, the more you're going to be able to sit behind the glass and just pick apart country. In particular, we're talking Colorado. So that usually means you're going to be on a high point, you're going to be on a big ridge that overlooks a canyon or a big basin, and you're going to need a really good tripod with a bino adapter. That'd be the next thing. So you're going to want to be able to be seated and picking apart country and just trying to find these bulls that are broken off from the herd. Oftentimes, I think people forget in second season Colorado that the majority of the rut hunting has occurred. The cows have basically separated from the mature bulls, and most people are looking for the elk instead of an elk. Your tag's only good for one, boys. So you got to go find one bull that is broken off by himself, and that takes a lot of work behind the optics. So again, you want your teepee tent so you can warm up, you can dry stuff out, and then you want really good tripod so you can put your binos on there and be glassing really strong. And then the last piece of that is have some really good puffy gear, some good layering equipment, but in particular a big puffy jacket, because I don't know how many times it's been I hiked my butt into this place, I'm sweating, it's only 20 degrees out, but I'm just pouring sweat, and then as soon as I sit down to glass, I start shivering, man. And as soon as you start shivering, you lose focus and you lose your motivation to stay in the glass and do the things you got to do to find an elk in those late seasons. So that would be the 3.
Dude, yeah, I think I love the puffy jacket answer. That's my big thing. I don't go on any trip, even if it's dude, I like to do some summer backpacking and stuff. I still bring a lightweight down puffy on those. Always puffy jacket. I look at that as more of even a safety item.
Yeah.
Because if shit hits the fan, I got that puffy jacket, and then late season, dude, I got that Kafaru Lost Parka. That thing has saved me. That thing is an oven. But yeah, I'm big, always puffy jacket.
I do a lot of guiding and late season elk hunts in Wyoming. And I've ended up adding a lot of the puffy pants too. I've got the Lost Park pants as well.
Yeah.
And
I got them too.
Dude, that's a lifesaver. Especially as you're either, sometimes depending on the tripod, you're either sitting in the ground because it's most stable, or it's windy, or whatever. You just get cold. So staying warm when you're not hiking. I think the big misconception about these late season elk hunts is that you're hiking all day long. And dude, I bet you I only do 2 to 4 miles max in a good late season elk hunt, because you're getting in there in the dark and then you're posting up, right? So you're sweating your butt off in the dark, getting to where you need to be, and then you're you're parking it for the majority of the day as you are glassing the morning and the evening in particular.
Yeah, I think I did a lot more hiking early on, but that was more out of my own ignorance. Probably looking back, like definitely should at least waited a lot longer in the mornings and settled down earlier in the evenings behind a glass. Yeah.
But that's also come again, bring it back to what we're talking about, the old school tactics. Is if you're in a place where guys are posted up on these big glass and knobs and they're doing the thing that we're just talking about, and you got snow, then go back to some of the roots of like tracking elk, still hunting, and you can, or let's say you don't have this gear, you don't have a good puffy or whatever the case is, then go back to those old school tactics where you're moving super slow and picking apart timber that's really hard to glass, that's hard to get a good vantage point on. So that is one of the things that I think every time that you have a yin, you've got a yang to it, right? Like
Always.
Whenever you see that elk go over the ridge, you're sitting there and you're like, God, I can't look into that from here. It's like, well, go get him. Like he's not going to get himself. So you got to go chop it up and pull another tool out of the toolbox.
Yeah, that's how I got my mule deer in Colorado in 2023. Still hunting in the timber. I was like, this glassing thing isn't going to work in just that environment where I was in.
Mm-hmm.
Things were just thick and weren't turning much up. And yeah, I killed it's the one back here. I mean, he's a 4x4. I mean, he's no Boone and Crockett, but it was like, yeah, that's I think it's like anything, dude. Like any craft. It's like, okay, here's like some rules of thumbs at a high level. But then you got to like get out there and start breaking the rules, obviously, if things aren't working. And there's no absolutes. So you got to always try to like be fluid with everything.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I will say, like, and going back to like this guy we're just like talking to who's his first trip out or first couple trips out, I do think it's important to get good at one style. Like, find the thing that you're good at. If you're not in the best physical condition and you can't just crush out 10, 15, 20 mountain miles in a day, like, okay, don't be out here running every ridge that you find, because you're going to not keep in the game. Same thing if you're just if you're like us, right? We're like fit, we like to move, like,
yeah,
man, maybe glassing isn't the number one tactic, or doing it all day long isn't the number one tactic.
Maybe do what you like, because that's what's going to keep you out there. Yeah.
Exactly, man. I mean, as long as you're not in the Airbnb or in your side by side or in the RV, like, stay out there and doing stuff, and that's gonna just alone that'll increase your chances massively.
Yeah. Let's go the other way real quick on gear. So there's three things where it's like, hey man, I would probably invest in that. But what are, maybe not even three, maybe you can just think of even if just one or two or three, if you can think of it, of like, the guy says like, hey dude, I saw this on the internet. Like, I think I'm going to, spend the money here. Is there any items where it's like, dude, you could probably get by with what you have for XYZ? Does anything come to mind there?
Yeah, the first one that pops out to my mind is like hunting specific clothing. Like, dude, and I still do. I have this great mountain hardware fleece that I wear a lot because it's just a good piece of gear. It's good. It's a pine green color and it works great. And I really like it. Now, of course, like, as you can afford it and like as you move down the line, like, you add in the hunting specific brands. Like, I totally get that. But gosh, I just feel like that's the first place that people start wasting money instead of putting it into the things that make them a better hunter. And on the other side of that, I think that there's a lot of different, it's probably just dependent on the person, as to what they are spending their money too much on. Probably rifle and weapons, like, are a place that people are spending way too much money, and like, they think they got to have the highest end, flattest shooting, latest cartridge, and it's like, dude, let's just stick with the 270 or 30-06 and let it rip. Like don't feel like you have to overthink those things,
Yeah, I think those were the couple things I was thinking of too, especially like, I have a lot of the Sitka gear. I think when I started, I probably bought a few extra pieces than I really needed. It's nice now though, because I mean, the gear is great and it works, but I can't tell you the last time I bought, piece of safety gear. Like, I just been keeping all that the whole time. So
Yeah.
I'm a little bit like, okay, at least I bought it then and that's it. But looking back, it's like, yeah, I probably could have got away with a little bit less. But
Yeah.
I do like the puffy jacket thing. I think having a good
Yeah,
puffy jacket is key.
for sure, man. I'll come up. I came up with one more just sitting here.
Go ahead.
The last thing that I think a lot of people like say they have to have is either a side by side or a 4-wheeler. And I oftentimes will recommend if someone has them to bring them. But usually what happens is like if you do that, you end up relying on it all the time to just drive around all day. And dude, for the first little bit of me hunting like on my own, like, late high school, early college, I was driving a freaking Volkswagen Jetta. Like just get someplace where you can start hiking. Like that is a much more important feature than it is to make sure you have every whiz bang like side by side off-road vehicle thing that you can afford. So that's someplace I wouldn't ball out just because you're gonna start hunting the West there.
Okay, that's a good answer too. Because when you do it like how you said too, you're gonna see more shit. Like if you wanna, yeah, because I could see that scenario. It's like, dude, I bought this like Razor and like we're out here with it. Like I don't even want to go hike up there. Let's just keep whipping around in this thing. And it's like, sure, dude, you could probably cover a lot of country in that thing, and that might be really cool. But don't let it take away from you like hiking around and seeing some cool shit too.
Yeah, and it is super helpful. Like if you have the discipline to do both, yes, it's gonna like totally open up more country for you. But if you haven't, and we're just talking about first couple trips, like, and it's you got to haul a trailer and pull it around in the snow and do all those things like late season, yeah, I would opt against it in a lot of cases for a new guy.
Gotcha. Okay, so here's our guy. He's like, all right, Jayden, we went out there, like we're going, and like they go, and they had a hell of a time. They saw some elk. They're addicted. Okay, maybe the brother-in-law killed a raghorn, and they're just like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And we're doing this. Like we want to be one of them guys. Like, so they come back and they start looking at, they're reading Eastman's, they're looking at the MRS, they're looking on Hunting Fool and like all these things, and it's like they're now being like, okay, I want to learn, I want to be more of a student. But they do want to pick your brain on like, okay, I don't need every state, but I want to start building a little bit of a portfolio. And they love elk. So it's like, okay, we just came back from our first elk hunt. We want to start looking at other opportunities for the next 3, 4, 5 years. At least that's what they can wrap their head around. What are a few states where you think are just good jumping off points to start getting in the game?
Yeah, I think in any combination of states, for an elk hunter, Colorado's got to be in there somewhere because they offer all the different types of opportunity, and at different point levels. Like you can go on a first season rifle elk hunt with no points. You can spend years waiting for a really good archery tag. Like there's a lot of variability in Colorado. So I like that as a big option, main option. The next one that usually follows behind that at this stage in the game was Montana, because it's a relatively easy state. 1-2 years of applying. You could be lucky like me and get a tag the first year you apply because there's a random element to it. And then the last one was probably Idaho for that like short term. You're gonna have to figure out what is happening with the non-resident draw. It used to be a first come first serve system, but that system was whack. You could still get tags in it, but it was really hard. And now it's moving to a draw system, and that opens up in December. So this is the first year of it. So I can't really tell you any details about it because there's none. Like we don't know yet.
I was going to ask you if you saw really anything come out. I haven't seen anything since that. They said this is the year they're gonna do it.
Yeah, I just remember it was like mid-December is when your applications are due, and then January is when they're gonna come out.
Okay.
I've been tracking how fast tags sell out the last 3 years. So I'll have I have a spreadsheet that I've just been sitting online whenever either I'm waiting to get a tag or I just am watching it for my own sake. And I've got that spreadsheet, so hopefully I'll have an idea of which ones are going first in the draw. But that's the other state that I would add to the kind of the list, especially because it's going to be so quick of a turnaround to find out if you need to apply in other states.
Yeah, and that Idaho's so tough set up like that. I wonder if they'll let you do this when it's a draw, but trying to hunt with another guy because it was first come first serve, and but basically you get thrown in a queue, and you could be number 2,000 or 60,000, and you could be screwed, and it's totally random. But I not to give away like where I'm going or what I'm doing, but like couldn't believe it. My buddy and I from Pennsylvania here, we're like, well, let's just try. We log on, and we were fairly close together and not too far down the ranks. And we both got in. Well, I got in first, and he was right behind me. And there were some elk tags. So we felt like I was like, dude, we really lucked out. Like two guys, non-residents, getting the same elk zone. So that's what's on my docket for September. But yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, we're stoked. But
are those archery tags? Are you guys gonna rifle hunt? Okay,
they're archery tags. Yeah, I actually have 2 tags. I'm hunting the first, basically call it the first half of September for Colorado archery deer, backpacking up in the high country, and then I'm bouncing to Idaho to hunt basically the last 2 weeks with this elk tag. So I got all my work vacation is in September, and I got most September off. So yeah,
good for you, man. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, you're gonna have no matter what happens, you're gonna have a hell of an adventure. So that's always fun.
Oh, dude, absolutely. So okay, I love the advice there. We got some direction for our guy. He's gonna start building points, and just I kind of tell people too. It's like anything, dude. Like if you want to be like, if you want to get in shape and stuff, like it's kind of got to be part of a little bit like of your lifestyle a little bit. Like when you're just like me going to the gym, it's like brushing my teeth, or like going for a run, like just exercise. It's just something that I do. So it's like with hunting, you want to like learn how to hunt the West more and just become more of a student. It's like, I don't know, when you're driving around like with it, like at work all day, like throw on a podcast. Like that's just kind of how I do it. Like I'm just like, oh, here's a new Eastman's Elevated, or here's a new Go Hunt, or whatever. And it's just like you're just constantly kind of flowing and keep learning. That's my advice.
That's exactly right, man. That's, if there's one thing people take away from it, it's like, just be a student of the game, and you'll realize this stuff's a lot easier than your buddy down the street makes it out to be.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess I did want to ask like one more question. So I think it was really great. Like that, I've seen that scenario play out like a ton, where guys like, I don't know anything, I don't know what to do. I'd say if you listen to this episode, kind of walk you through like a real world example of how you can go this year, giving a lot of good information, and then setting yourself up for future years in a very practical way. Everything we said can be done even now, and it's July. It's after application season. You can do everything we said like starting now. The question I did want to ask though, you work with a lot of guys planning a lot of hunts, especially I'd imagine for non-residents. What are like the common failures you see with guys when they come out of their hunt and you follow up with them? You tried to put them in the right direction, and maybe they got on elk, maybe they didn't. It's probably hard to tell, like, how much effort they put in. It's probably hard to measure, but just listening to hear people follow up with you that did run into failures, what are kind of those commonalities you see?
I think the number one thing is usually that they are running behind schedule. I have this joke that I tell a lot of my guys. I'm like, did you know Bob Seger was an elk hunter? Because he wrote that song Night Moves about elk hunting. And it's like, it's like the idea was just to make something stick in their brains, to be like, look, if you're not moving at night to get into position for first light,
dude, I love this. Yeah,
you're losing out on. It doesn't matter how dang good the spot is. You're not there when the elk are visible, not when they're up on their feet and able to be like got. That's a huge piece of it, and it works. It's the same with mule deer for sure. If you're not there on time, then you're definitely. It doesn't matter the spot. Like you're just not hunting it effectively. I think that's something that people will get frustrated by if they're not on time. Some of that comes down to like the giving yourself ample time to hike in places or just drive a new road. And so like a lot of that starts with earlier planning. Like, okay, well, I'm going to be changing to go to a new trailhead at 10 p.m., not at 4 a.m., because I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get there.
Yep.
That's a really important approach change. And then after that, usually like the number one failure is fitness, like people will just say, that dang thing ate my lunch and spat it out back at me. Like it just, the mountain doesn't hold back. Like you will have to find out where your limits are, every time you go on a lot of these hunts. And so that's huge. And almost every time someone's come out for the first trip out west, they've gone back home and said like, God, I got to change my diet and I got to work out harder. Like that's just a common theme. I think really those two things are really the top two that I run into.
Okay. I love both those. The first one, is key. Like I heard my baseball coach say this in high school, and I've been saying it like for these Western hunts, like this is a game of seconds. Like baseball is like a long, slow game that takes hours, but it's a game of seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Like backcountry hunting, it might be a week and like there's hours behind the glass. And it feels like it takes forever, but like it's a game of seconds. Like I've learned that in the sense of like, you could be in the spot, but if you're not at the glassing spot before light or for first light or at the right times to glass, etc., you might as well not even be in the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then also too, like that's how I like to look at gear a lot is like, okay, this water filtration system, like how fast am I going to be screwing with this thing for an hour to fill up like 3 liters? Like I want like the most fast dialed system that obviously like still works, where I'm getting water and it's not like this big chore that I don't want to do it or I have to like, I don't want the temptation of like leaving my glassing spot early to go down to the creek to make sure I give myself enough time. Like I use it. I mean, people can say what they want. I use a stair pen. I keep my bottle right on my hip. I fill that thing up, and in 60 seconds, I got a liter, and I keep moving. On this bear hunt I just did in Idaho, we spent a couple days. We only glassed up 1 bear, and it was 10 or 11 o'clock at night. We're all back at camp, and the guys were like, "Yeah, we're moving now." And because we want to get into this other spot at first light, like the next day. We only had like 5 hunting days, and I was like, hell yeah, like because I know how like that's how this game works. Like you only have so many mornings and evenings, and you need to be at those right spots at those times. Not that you can't, still hunt midday and in the late season and try to kill a mule deer or a bull, but obviously your mornings and evenings are money. So I like that you said that. And then the fitness thing, of course, yeah, dude, it's huge. And people can say what they want about, the elk shape and like watching Cam Hanes and like the Mountain Tough platforms, but it's like, and somebody will always say, well, I know so-and-so, he's out of shape and he kills an elk every year. And it's like, okay, well, you're also promoting a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I never really understood the people that like to talk shit on some of that stuff. But it's only going to help you because more often than not, you hear the stories of the guys that come back, they want to change. And I hear them from like being from back east back here. They want to make a change, and it turns into like not just for the hunt, but it's like a lifestyle change. And how awesome is that you have a craft that changes your day-to-day habits the other 11 and a half months out of the year? Like that's pretty cool in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, I always say that same thing, and it's really cool. So my girlfriend and all her family are super fit people. Like we were just out on a vacation with them, and there was like 70-year-olds jumping off of the top of these bridges into the water. Like they're super stoked, and none of them hunt. And it was really cool. It was a good reminder. I was like, oh yeah, you don't have to hunt to be fit. And actually, a matter of fact, hunting shouldn't be the first reason that you're fit. There's a lot of of really good reasons, whether you just want health and longevity or like just a happier, healthier life until you get old. But then you add in the hunting equation and it's like, all right, buddy, this thing will show you real quick how you need to make some changes. All of that being said, I want a person who's dialed, like you're talking about, dialed with their gear and is on time at the glassing knob or back into the basin where they're bugling for elk. I'll take a guy who's on time and out of shape over a dude who's really fit but sleeps in 10 days out of the or like 10 days out of the week,
100%.
you know, like every
Yep.
day and then some. So that is important and something to, you know, people who are maybe on the journey to get healthier or do their whole thing. Like, it doesn't mean that you can't go out and hunt and have a good time. You just have to also grade yourself on a curve. And if you're not doing 3 miles an hour on a trail, you're doing 1, that's just going to really cut down the amount of time you have to sleep, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's something's going to give, and you want to make sure you're not giving that prime time behind the glass,
Yep.
etc.
Yep.
Yeah. Dude, I think this was an awesome podcast. We'll wrap up here. Where can people find you and your stuff and the Hunt West podcast? I think we're doing like a twofer here.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure, I'm plugging you too. So where can people find the Hunt West podcast? Because this will obviously air on my podcast too.
Yeah, it's just called like the Hunt West podcast on podcast app and Spotify and wherever else you like to download your shows. You can also kind of keep up with what we have going on Instagram, because I'm usually pretty steady posting on there, and it's just Hunt West Planning Co. And my personal is just at Jaden Bales. So try to keep it simple for everybody. And if anyone has questions, they don't have to hire me to just ask a simple question. So, you know, feel free to shoot me a DM, and I'm happy to help people out, just like get them pointed in the right direction, because I've had people in my hunting history that have done the same for me, and I'm happy to just kind of pay it forward. So I think a lot of people hesitate to reach out to me because they're like, well, he does this for a living. And I'm like, no, dude, like there's a lot
Are you
of
going to charge
resources.
me if I ask you this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not a
Yeah.
lawyer. Like, your clock
Right.
doesn't start as soon as I read the message.
No.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, we'll just love to connect with anybody who wants some help coming out west. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, and if they want to dive further into the Hunt West Planning Company, that just hit you up via your DMs.
Yeah, you can. Of course, you can go to my website, huntwestplanning.com, if you want.
There you go.
But yeah. Also, just hit me up, and you can ask me questions there too.
Awesome, dude. Well, sounds great, man. I appreciate your time. Like I said, I think this was an awesome episode for a real practical way to get out and hunt the West for the first time. Yeah, dude. Really enjoyed the chat.
Yeah, me too, man. And hey, you're doing a ton of awesome work, inspiring people, motivating people, and putting out some good information. So same to you. Just keep on keeping on, man. You're doing great.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
No problem, man.
All right, dude. I'll let you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one. See you, dude.
Later.
Hey, if you liked that episode, please share it with a friend, share it on your story, and give the podcast a rating and a review on wherever you listen. For more of this type of content, you can head over to the YouTube channel and follow along on all the social platforms. Really appreciate it. See you on the mountain.